Verse 603. All things are devoid of self-nature, have never been born, and in their original nature are like the sky. Things separated from concatenation belong to the discrimination of the ignorant. The previous few verses have introduced us to this new term, concatenation, which simply means joining things together. Associating things, perhaps, associating things with each other. And the importance of this term is that this is how we create our picture of reality, through a process of association, through concatenation. And we're told here, in no uncertain terms, that to believe in a reality outside of this process is ignorant discrimination. Now, this isn't just a philosophical point of view. This is something to be realized. It's part of our enlightenment practice. It's a practical teaching. And the first part of this verse gives us a little meditation. Remember, we've got this almost inbuilt assumption that a particular understanding that we hold is actually the way things are. That understanding is that is an external world out there. There's an individual here moving around and interacting with that external world. To question this seems absurd, but this is what we're doing. This is the discrimination of the ignorant, which must be questioned. So we've got this world out there, and let's do our little meditation then. The first part tells us that all things are devoid of self-nature. So this takes away any sense of a unique identity to anyone or anything out there. Our basic discrimination tells us that there's lots of things going on, lots of different things. The first part of our meditation asks us to question this. You can question it from a purely conventional understanding, which tells us that, well, yes, everything's process, everything is interdependent, everything's a continual flow. Or we can take it further and appreciate the true nature of everything as a dream, as an assemblage of consciousness. What difference is there in a dream between my mother and a polar bear? Are they different entities? Do they have different self-natures? Their only reality is the reality given to them by my dream consciousness. And it has different associations with each one. The difference between my mother in a dream and a polar bear in my dream is purely how I relate to them. The associations I have with my mother are different to the associations I have with the polar bear. And these associations are a chain of concatenations. So we're looking beyond that chain of concatenations to the fact that, as in a dream, There's nothing there. There is nothing essentially there. So this is what the next part of the meditation tells us. All things are devoid of self-nature, have never been born. Have never been born. In other words, we're now challenging the argument that things are as they are because of their historical past. My mother came into being at a certain point in time. A polar bear came into being at a certain point in time. This makes them distinct entities. But just as in a dream, that history is part of the associations ascribed by consciousness to its discriminations. So just as in a dream, there is no history. Both my mother, who's now deceased, and the polar bear, that history is created in the moment. Because neither have actually been born. They're part of the story of consciousness. They're part of the stories created by consciousness. So finally, going further, looking into these entities in the so-called external world, being devoid of self-nature, having never been born, in their original nature, are like the sky. We have to remember what the sky is often like in India. It's a clear blue, empty sky. In other words, there's nothing that can be differentiated. There's nothing in the sky. In fact, the sky is simply space. And space, like consciousness, is what gives room for things to apparently exist. It's like the big projection screen. So there's one final step here to complete our meditation. And that is to realize that all things are actually of the nature of awareness. And this is quite a tricky one. If I am aware of this mouse, is this mouse anything other than my awareness? Now, notice the tendency to want to give this mouse its own independent identity. This mouse is physical. My awareness isn't. This mouse can be touched and sensed in various ways. How my awareness cannot. So surely this mouse is quite different from awareness. This is our disposition. This is our prejudice even. How can this mouse be of the same nature of that which is aware of it? Well, I think there's a particular philosophical argument here which says, well, how could it be otherwise? But I'm not a philosopher. Perhaps if one of you knows what I'm talking about, you can embellish on it in a comment. It's something along the lines that how can awareness be aware of something which is of a different nature. So actually the natural assumption is that objects must be of the same nature of awareness, because we couldn't be aware of them otherwise. It's the assumption that they're different which causes problems. The assumption that the objects that we're aware of are different in nature from awareness itself. But to complete our contemplation here, just consider dreams once more. Is the awareness in dreams different from the dream itself? Hopefully it should be easier to see that dreams are no different from the awareness that creates them. And I use the terms awareness and consciousness interchangeably. We're so used to ignoring awareness, ignoring consciousness, that we've completely subverted its prime position. Its prime position in the establishment of all of this. And as enlightenment practitioners, this is what we come back to once more. We are claiming back. We are consciousness claiming back once more its rightful place. Its rightful place has been usurped by its own creations. In other words, this whole physical world, all the objects and the entities in it. In our own hearts, these are what are real. These are what we relate to. It's these relationships that we're caught up in. But now we come back, we just do our meditation here. We realize that all things are devoid of self-nature, have never been born, and in their original nature are like the sky. And the sky is consciousness. The sky holds everything. The sky is space for everything. And this awareness is the awareness that is hearing this. It's our everyday, ongoing awareness which is happening every moment. It is giving us reality at every moment. What reality is it giving us? Well, that's up to us as enlightenment practitioners.